After 25 years of living the American dream, one family woke up to a nightmare that nobody could have ever imagined in their worst dreams. The government made a decision so shocking, so unexpected, so deeply painful, and so absolutely heartbreaking that it sent waves of fear, disbelief, and confusion across the entire country. Immigrant families who have spent years, even decades, building their lives in the United States are now lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, and asking themselves one terrifying question that they never thought they would have to face. Is my citizenship truly safe? Is everything I have worked for, everything I have sacrificed for, everything I have built over the course of my life in this country actually secure? Stay with me till the very end of this video, because what I am about to share with you today is going to completely and permanently change the way you think about citizenship in America, what it truly means, what it actually costs, and what it can take away from you when you least expect it. Welcome back to Immigration Updates Hub, the channel that is dedicated entirely to bringing you the most important, most accurate, most reliable, and most up-to-date information about U.S. immigration, visas, citizenship, green cards, and everything else that affects the daily lives and long-term futures of immigrants living in or planning to move to America. We know how much is at stake for you and your family, and that is exactly why we work so hard every single day to make sure you have the information you need before you need it. If you are watching this channel for the very first time today, we are genuinely so glad that you found us. Please take just 2 seconds right now to hit that subscribe button below this video and turn on the bell notification icon so that you are always the first to know whenever we post new content. We cover stories, legal updates, policy changes, and critical information that can directly impact your immigration journey and your future in the United States. And today's story is absolutely one that every single immigrant family in America needs to stop everything and hear from beginning to end. Now let me take you deep, really deep into the heart of this story that has shocked, disturbed, and frightened families from one coast of America to the other. A family that had been living in the United States for 25 long, full, meaningful years recently received an official notice from the United States government. That notice carried words that no immigrant family ever wants to see. Their citizenship was being stripped away, canaled, revoked, erased after a full quarter of a century. Let that sink in for a moment. 25 years. This was not a family with a violent past or a criminal record that followed them through their years in America. These were people who had poured their hearts and souls into building a complete life in this country. They had arrived with dreams just like millions of other immigrants before them, and they had worked incredibly hard to turn those dreams into reality. They had raised their children here on American soil. They had sent those children to American elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. They had watched their children grow up speaking English, making American friends, playing American sports, and dreaming American dreams. They had gone to work every single day. They had paid their federal taxes, their state taxes, their property taxes every single year without fail. They had contributed actively and meaningfully to their local communities. They had obeyed the laws of the land. They had celebrated Thanksgiving and the 4th of July. They had voted in local elections after becoming citizens. They had done absolutely everything that a good citizen is supposed to do, and they had done it for 25 consecutive years. And yet, despite all of that history, despite all of that contribution, despite all of those years of honest and lawful living, the government arrived at their door with a decision that tore their entire world apart in an instant. The legal process through which the United States government took away this family's citizenship has a name, and that name is denaturalization. Most people living in America today, including many naturalized citizens who have held their citizenship for years, have never heard this word. Many do not even know that such a process exists under American law. But denaturalization is very real. It is very much a part of the legal framework of the United States, and it has been used by the government for many decades across many different administrations from both political parties. Denaturalization is the formal legal process through which the U.S. government can revoke, cancel, and permanently remove a person's naturalized citizenship if it is discovered and proven in a court of law that the citizenship was obtained through fraud, through deliberate misrepresentation, through the concealment of important and material facts, or through any other illegal or dishonest means during the original application process. The Department of Justice of the United States maintains a specific unit that is dedicated entirely to investigating and pursuing these kinds of cases. This unit has access to immigration records going back many decades, and in recent years, the government has dramatically increased its investment of resources, personnel, and technology into finding and prosecuting denaturalization cases across the country. What makes this particular case so uniquely alarming, so widely discussed, and so deeply unsettling to the broader immigrant community is the extraordinary amount of time that had passed between when the family first obtained their citizenship and when the government decided to take action. 25 years is not a short period of time by any measure. It is a full generation. It is long enough to raise children from infancy to adulthood. It is long enough to build an entire career from the ground up. It is long enough to purchase a home, pay off a mortgage, start a business, watch grandchildren be born, and become so thoroughly and completely woven into the social, economic, and cultural fabric of American life that any distinction between you and someone who was born here seems almost meaningless. And yet, the U.S. government went back through 25 years of records, combed through old immigration files that most people had long forgotten about, cross-referenced documents and databases, and found what it determined to be sufficient and compelling grounds to open and aggressively pursue a denaturalization case against this family. Federal investigators working on the case discovered that during the original citizenship application process, certain critical pieces of information had either been deliberately hidden from immigration authorities or had been falsely presented in a way that materially affected the outcome of the application. The government's legal position was absolute and unwavering. It did not matter how much time had passed. It did not matter how well the family had lived in the years since. Citizenship that was built on a dishonest foundation could not be allowed to stand, and the government had both the legal authority and the institutional determination to dismantle it. Now, here is a legal reality that most people, even people who have been American citizens for many years, do not know about and do not fully understand. When it comes to citizenship fraud in the United States, there is no statute of limitations. Please take a moment to let the full weight of that statement settle in your mind, because it is one of the most important things you will hear on this channel today. A statute of limitations is a legal time limit after which the government is no longer permitted to take legal action against a person for a particular offense or violation. In most areas of American law, these time limits exist to provide people with certainty and finality, to ensure that old mistakes cannot haunt someone forever, and to recognize that evidence becomes harder to evaluate accurately as time passes. But when it comes to the crime of citizenship fraud and the process of denaturalization, Congress made a deliberate and explicit decision not to include any statute of limitations whatsoever. This means that it does not matter if 5 years have passed. It does not matter if 15 years have passed. It does not matter if 25 years have passed, as in this family's case. It does not even matter if 40 or 50 years have passed. If the United States government finds credible evidence that your citizenship was obtained through fraud or deliberate misrepresentation at any point in the past, they retain the full legal authority and the institutional power to pursue denaturalization proceedings against you, regardless of how long ago the original application was submitted. Time does not heal this particular wound in the eyes of American law. Time does not create forgiveness. Time does not create immunity. The clock never runs out. This is the deeply uncomfortable and frightening legal reality that this family found themselves confronting. The government did not factor in the 25 years of lawful, peaceful, and productive living that the family had demonstrated. The government's legal argument was straightforward, cold, and legally sound. The foundation upon which your citizenship was built was fraudulent. Therefore, the citizenship itself cannot stand regardless of what came after it. The family pushed back with everything they had. They retained experienced immigration attorneys who specialized in denaturalization defense. They gathered character witnesses from their community, their church, their children's schools, and their workplaces. They submitted evidence of their contributions to American society over the past quarter century. They made emotional and compelling arguments that stripping citizenship after 25 years was not only disproportionately harsh, but fundamentally contrary to the spirit of what America is supposed to represent. Their case attracted intense and sustained attention from immigration attorneys across the country, from prominent civil rights organizations, from immigrant advocacy groups, from major newspapers, and even from several members of the United States Congress who publicly questioned whether the government's action in this case had crossed a line. One of the most emotionally devastating dimensions of this story is what it means for the children in this family. Some of the children were born on American soil, and for them, citizenship is an absolute constitutional right guaranteed by the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. The government cannot touch those children's citizenship under any circumstances because it was not derived from their parents' naturalization, but from the simple and undeniable fact of their birth on American territory. But for other family members who went through the naturalization process themselves, the situation is far more complex and far more dire. The very real possibility of deportation began to loom over them like a dark cloud. Try for a moment to truly imagine what that feels like. You have lived in a country for 25 years. You have no meaningful connections left in the country you originally came from. The language has changed. The culture has moved on. The people you once knew there have scattered. Your entire life, your home, your friendships, your professional network, your children, your grandchildren, everything that gives your existence meaning and structure is here in America. And now you are being told that you might be forced to leave and go back to a place that is essentially a foreign country to you at this point in your life. That is not just a legal consequence. That is the complete and total destruction of a human life as it has been built and lived. The denaturalization process itself, from a purely procedural standpoint, is not a quick or simple matter. The federal government must initiate and file a formal civil lawsuit in a federal district court. It must then prove its case against the individual by what the law describes as clear and convincing evidence, which is a higher standard than the typical preponderance of evidence standard used in most civil cases. The person who is facing denaturalization has the constitutional right to legal representation and the right to mount a full defense in federal court. However, the practical reality is that the power imbalance between an individual immigrant family with limited financial resources and the full weight of the United States Department of Justice with its enormous legal budget, its experienced attorneys, its investigators, and its access to decades' worth of government records is staggering. Many families simply cannot afford to mount an effective legal defense over what can become a multi-year court battle and the emotional, psychological, financial, and social toll of living under the shadow of denaturalization proceedings while trying to maintain some semblance of normal daily life is almost impossible to adequately describe. Immigration attorneys across the United States have responded to this high-profile case with urgent and direct warnings aimed at their existing and potential clients. Legal professionals specializing in immigration and citizenship law are now strongly and consistently advising every naturalized citizen, regardless of how long ago they obtained their citizenship, to take the time to go back and carefully and thoroughly review their original immigration and citizenship applications. If there were any errors in those documents, whether intentional or completely unintentional, whether large or seemingly trivial, it is significantly and substantially better from a legal standpoint to address those errors proactively and voluntarily with the assistance of a qualified immigration attorney, rather than to wait passively and hope that the government never discovers them. Voluntary and properly handled disclosure of past errors, when managed correctly by an experienced legal professional, can sometimes be resolved in ways that protect and preserve a person's immigration status. But when the government discovers those errors through its own independent investigations, the consequences become dramatically more severe, the legal options become dramatically more limited, and the path to any kind of positive resolution becomes dramatically more difficult to navigate. The current political and administrative environment in the United States has made it abundantly clear that denaturalization is not going away as a government enforcement tool. Multiple administrations have maintained and expanded the government's denaturalization capabilities, and government officials have made repeated public statements emphasizing that American citizenship represents one of the most valuable and precious statuses in the entire world, and that it must be vigorously protected from those who obtained it through dishonest means. The government has stated plainly and repeatedly that no case is too old to investigate, and that no case is too complicated to pursue if the underlying evidence of fraud is sufficiently strong and credible for the broader immigrant community living in the United States today. This story has created a palpable and widespread climate of anxiety, uncertainty, and fear that community organizations and immigration legal service providers are seeing and feeling every single day. Organizations that serve immigrant populations across the country have reported dramatic increases in people reaching out with urgent questions about their own immigration histories, their original application documents, and whether any aspect of their past might put them at risk of government scrutiny. People who applied for green cards or naturalization years or even decades ago are suddenly trying to reconstruct from memory every single detail of those old applications and wondering with genuine terror whether every answer they gave was completely and fully accurate. There is also a serious and important conversation happening among legal scholars, policy experts, immigration advocates, and lawmakers about whether the current legal framework around denaturalization strikes the right balance between legitimate government enforcement interests and basic human fairness. Critics of aggressive denaturalization enforcement argue passionately and compellingly that the law as currently written and applied does not adequately account for the reality of a person's actual lived life in America. They argue that someone who has spent 25 years living honestly, working hard, raising good children, paying taxes, and contributing to their community has proven through the undeniable evidence of their daily actions and choices that they belong in America and that they deserve to remain here, regardless of what may have happened on a government form filed a quarter-century ago. Supporters of strict and uncompromising enforcement counter that rules and laws must mean something, that the integrity of the naturalization process is foundational to the integrity of American citizenship itself, and that allowing fraud to permanently stand simply because enough time has passed sends a deeply dangerous and corrosive message to everyone who went through the process honestly and played by the rules. What this case makes absolutely and unmistakably clear beyond any reasonable doubt or debate is that every single step of the immigration and citizenship process in the United States carries consequences that are real, that are serious, and that do not expire. Every form you fill out, every box you check, every question you answer, every document you sign and submit during your entire immigration journey carries weight that you cannot afford to underestimate. The information you provide during your initial visa application, your green card application, your citizenship application, and every other immigration filing you ever make can have profound consequences that follow you not just for years, but potentially for the rest of your life and even beyond. If you are currently anywhere in the immigration process, whether you are applying for your first visa, waiting for your green card interview, preparing your naturalization application, or anywhere in between, let this family story serve as the most powerful, most sobering, and most important reminder you will ever receive about the absolute necessity of complete and total honesty in everything you submit to the United States government. Disclose everything that is asked of you fully and accurately. If you are unsure about how to answer any question on any immigration form, do not guess, do not assume, and do not leave it blank. Consult with a qualified and experienced immigration attorney before you submit anything. The investment you make in getting proper legal advice at every stage of your immigration journey is worth infinitely more than the cost of facing government scrutiny years or decades down the road. This family story is a tragedy on multiple levels simultaneously. It is a tragedy of broken trust between a family and the country they called home. It is a tragedy of the immense and often invisible fragility of a dream that millions of people around the world dedicate their entire lives to pursuing. It is a tragedy that illustrates with brutal clarity just how much power the government holds over the lives of naturalized citizens, and just how vulnerable individuals and families can be when they find themselves caught in the machinery of federal law enforcement. And it is ultimately a story as painful as it is, that carries within it an urgent and invaluable lesson for every immigrant family in America today. Thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts for watching today's video here on Immigration Updates Hub. This is exactly the kind of story that we created this channel to cover, because we believe deeply and sincerely that every immigrant family in America deserves to have access to information that can protect them, inform them, and help them navigate the incredibly complex world of American immigration with confidence and clarity. If this video gave you information that you found valuable, if it made you think, if it made you want to go back and review your own immigration documents, then please take just a moment to give this video a thumbs up. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts or your own experiences. And most importantly, share this video with every immigrant family in your life who needs to hear this message. Your support is the reason this channel exists, and the reason we are able to keep bringing you the content that matters most. Stay informed, stay honest, stay protected, and we will see you in the very next video right here on Immigration Updates Hub.